Welcome to Cake on Tuesday, where we spotlight the rule breakers, the underdogs who refuse to listen when everyone said it won't work. I'm Elizabeth Bieniek, and for the next 20 minutes, we're diving into another disruptive innovation story that proves sometimes the craziest ideas change everything. Today's guest is Tonya Thomas, founder of Team Delegate, which provides elite virtual executive support tailored for SMB owners and entrepreneurs. After 18 years of serving high-level clients, Tonya saw an opportunity for highly skilled executive VAs to help high-net-worth individuals break free from administrative overwhelm, not by simply carrying out tasks, but partnering strategically to create capacity. Tonya's been featured in a variety of media outlets, spoken extensively on leadership and strategic delegation, recently received the 2025 Enterprising Woman of the Year Award. Tonya, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to dive in here. We've talked about some really cool things offline on LinkedIn. I would like you to start us off by just telling us a little bit about what sets your soul on fire about what you do. What do you love about what you do?
Sure. What sets my soul on fire about what I do is being able to help entrepreneurs get out of overwhelm. I know even for myself, just being in that space of wanting to scale, and even if you're not wanting to scale, but being in that space of getting your business to a certain point and kind of stalling out because you don't have the extra time, that can be very frustrating. And so I just love the fact of being able to help people get out of that piece by helping them, get the support that they need so they aren't doing things alone, and letting them know that it's not a fault of their own. It's just the fact that when we get to a certain point, we've reached our own capacity. And so then we need the opportunity to be able to get that extra support so that you're able to get unstuck, maybe get out of burnout to be able to move forward in your business. And so it's just always rewarding for me to be able to help people and hear clients say, hey, I'm, moving forward now because I'm not, in that place before where I was of not being able to get to the projects and tasks that I wanted to get to. We had one client to say, she had a project of a new service offering that she wanted to be able to get going, and she hadn't been able to do it before she came and started working with us, because then she had the space and capacity to be able to do it. So that was allowing her to bring in another revenue stream.
You're dealing with such a universal problem that everybody can relate to. I feel like every executive, every entrepreneur knows exactly what you are talking about. You said something recently on LinkedIn that jumped out to me a bit, that we said, every leader comes to a realization point that constant motion isn't the same as momentum. And I like the way that you phrase that, because a lot of times I think we confuse being busy with being productive, but motion doesn't always equal momentum. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you mean by that?
Sure. I think sometimes we can get stuck to a place of where we're just kind of hiding behind the scenes, and maybe we're working on things that, as the leader of your business, is not really going to move the needle forward. Just thinking of an example there, sometimes we can get stuck in the operations piece. Maybe we're working and trying to decide on how the system is going to work, maybe working on a spreadsheet that we're going to use to be able to keep track of something. I mean, that's perfectly fine and well, because that's important for you to have, but that's not the best use of your time. Are you working on that spreadsheet? Is that going to help you bring in new business? I mean, are you utilizing your time to, especially if you're the person, which a lot of entrepreneurs are, you're the face of the business. So you're the person that is particularly usually handling the sales piece of it. So is that allowing you to be in communication with potential prospects and clients while you're behind the scenes working on that? So that's an example of something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck in, and they feel like they're so busy because they're, doing stuff like that, but it's not something that's going to move the needle forward in their business. And so when you're doing things like that, just trying to be mindful and catch yourself, what is this doing for me? Is this going to help me get my face out there and being in touch with people so that they know that I'm here, and then opening the door for me to have sales conversations versus working on busy work?
Right. Do you find there's a significant amount of education that you're doing in the course of the services you're offering? Because you talked about the strategic delegation and the hidden costs. You called the hidden costs of underutilization. I jotted down here before you said the financial and cognitive drag created by underutilization. That's a big, heavy subject. Do you find yourself a lot of times educating entrepreneurs about, hey, here's where you might not see those hidden costs. This is what's actually going on. And how do you go about that?
Yes. A lot of our clients come to us for help. They know they need help, but they really don't know how
What
that's
kind
going
or
to
how?
look. Exactly. And so we do find that there is a lot of education that needs to happen because they may know, well, I need somebody to help me with my schedule or my inbox or something like that. But that's sometimes where the buck stops. And, it may be that they are underutilizing because they just don't know where else they could use that support. And that's where the education comes in, because I always tell people delegation is a skill set and it's not something that most of us actually do naturally, even personally, because you may find yourself, not doing it there either. But it is a skill set. So it's something that you have to learn and be cognizant of each and every day. So I gave that example earlier about working on the spreadsheet. So it's just being mindful of that, but it's also planning, because if you don't plan, you can definitely find yourself in that same situation. So oftentimes what we do when we begin working with someone is we have a planning session with them so that we can help map out exactly where they need support. And they have that plan to help, work with their EA and utilize so that they know where they're going through it. Okay, this is where I need help. I need help here too as well. Having that plan is definitely going to help them stay on track, because if you don't have that, you can tend to fall back into your old ways of you just doing everything.
Yeah. I think you hit on something important there of most of us are not born natural delegate. I would say my youngest is an exception to that rule. She was a born delegator. She's very good at it. She's only 6. She's very good at it. But for most of us, we have to learn that skill somewhere along the way. And I think about even my own career. When I first moved into management, it was that mental shift of, let's just be easier if I just did it on my own. Until getting to that point of, okay, it might take a little bit more upfront work to empower somebody else to do or execute the vision in your head. But that's the only way you can scale. So as you're going through that process with the people that you work with, what does that look like? Is there an aha moment that occurs at some point? Have they usually had that before they come to you? They usually have that through the course of working with you. How's that manifest?
Most of them have not done that, beforehand. They haven't thought about what areas they could get support in. They're just used to doing everything themselves. And you just taking them through different questions and listening to them about what's going on in their business. What are they working on? What is it that they want to be able to work on? Because 9 times out of 10, they all have, different tasks or projects that they wanted to do, but they couldn't get to, like the example I gave earlier. And most of the time they just don't, realize that where they could get help with that. Because really, may be on all projects and tasks, there's probably going to be some areas that only they can do. But 9 times out of 10, there's also other pieces of it that somebody else could do to help. And so it's just a matter of talking that through and seeing what that looks like.
Hmm. Let's talk about you for a minute and your founder story here. I mean, you obviously went through the same process yourself of realizing, hey, if I delegate, I can do more here, because you went from doing to leading. Can you tell us a little bit about why and what prompted that journey for you?
Sure. I have been in this space since 2001. And so a long time in the virtual assistant industry. And I
I'm sure you've seen it
remember,
change a lot in that
mhm,
time frame too.
I remember in 2009, I think I was having a session with my then business coach, and she said, "You don't have a business, you just have a job you've created for yourself." And at that time, it's like, okay, what are you talking about? I have a website, I have clients, I do have a business. And it just didn't hit me. And then maybe about 3 years later, I began to feel some type of way about what I was doing. And her words came back and they hit home and they resonated. I knew exactly what she meant. And so I thought to myself then, do I want to stay doing this? I just don't feel it anymore, me being the doer. And that's when I came to the realization that I loved helping people be able to delegate, get that support. I just didn't want to do it myself anymore. And so that's when Team Delegate was born. Because prior to that, the name of my company was a small office assistant. And I remember my husband telling me, "You're limiting yourself," when I named it that. But at the time, I didn't realize he was going to be right down the road. Because at the time, I'm thinking, we're just starting our family. This is what I want to do. So I have the flexibility. But he turned out to be correct. And so I had to rebrand to Team Delegate when I developed the agency model, but that's how I got here. So that's also helpful because I do fully understand what people are going through when they're trying to scale their companies, because I've gone through the same thing myself. And you deal with the same things in terms of being able to practice what I preach when it comes to delegation, because I know that's the only way that I'm going to be able to continue to scale.
Right. So if somebody comes to you and says, "Tonya, I need help. Something's not working, something needs to give." What's step one? How do you even jump in when you're not even sure what problem we're solving yet?
Sure. When a client comes, and they need the help and support, the first thing we want to do, is just talk to them about their goals. What are you trying to achieve? What do you want to achieve as a result of working with us? Because that's going to be helpful for them to have. I think it's always important to know why you want that support, because anytime you're working on something and you're wanting to reach that goal, you got to remember the why. That's going to be helpful for you in terms of being able to stay on task and on track with that. So it's helpful to get a clear understanding of why they want the help. And then after that, we kind of talk with them about what's happening in their business, what's going on in terms of, where they are in their journey. And then from there, just kind of asking them specific questions then about what particular things are they working on in their business? What's their day like for them? And asking those different things like that is always, it uncovers a lot. So then we get the information that we need to then go back to them and kind of say, okay, here's what we heard. Here's the plan. Here's how we can fully dive in and be able to help. And we go from there.
Hmm. Let's talk a minute about celebration. This is Cake on Tuesday. I love this idea of when we're doing hard things, we need to have a lot of fun. You're dealing with clients a lot of times that are at a point of overwhelm when they're starting with you, and you have a team of people that are doing hard things. How do you ensure that you and your team are having, and your clients are having fun and finding joy in the journey when you're doing hard things?
I know that's important for us behind the scenes, because I know the team needs to be able to enjoy what they're doing as well. And so we do, we meet every week. We have fun. We may have icebreaker questions, different things like that, so that everybody gets to learn each other, but then also at the same time, they're having fun in terms of what they're doing. We do meet with our clients as well, and always talking with them and trying to learn a little bit more about them and be able to celebrate their birthdays or anything like that they have going on. So we always want to be cognizant of that as well. And so there's just different little ways that we do on both ends to try to make sure that everybody is, on the up and up and enjoying the relationship.
All right. I love a good story. So I want to ask if you have an example or a client story you can share. Of course, don't have to share any specifics about them, but a time where it sort of reminded you or resonated with you. Yes, this is why I do what I do.
Sure. We had a client that came to us and she said, that she had, which this is a lot of them. Most of the clients that we have, they've tried it before and, it didn't work. And so that's the thing. And so she had gone a long time without support in between that. But she explained, what was happening in our business. And her analogy was, and I'm dating myself, and the I Love Lucy show. So I had seen that particular episode before where Ethel and Lucy were working at the candy factory and they were on
One
the
of the best
conveyor
ones.
belt. And yeah, she said that's the way her business was. At first it started out manageable because like the belt was going slow enough for her to handle everything. But as the business grew, it was like that conveyor belt. It started speeding up and she was just putting things here and there, but she knew that it just wasn't, it was going to all fall apart because it just wasn't organized. And so she used that particular analogy. And so we were able to find her the great, perfect assistant that was able to help her with her biggest thing was her email, help her with that, her calendar. Those were the big things for her. And her EA was doing some other things. But that was her story to us and we were able to help. And so then she felt like that conveyor belt was manageable again because she
Yeah.
was back to where it was like in the beginning of her business, even though it had grown and
Yeah.
tripled, she was able to manage and do what she needed to do.
I think that's such a good realization that a lot of founders have is you think you go to that initial startup phase and like, all right, well, I've got this now. I've got this engine. But you kind of forget you're constantly re-evaluating that and evolving and getting in the next level and going back to that conveyor belt all over again. So it's constant evolution. It's not one and done. So what are you most excited about looking ahead, looking at we're about to entering 2026 here? What are you most excited about for the year ahead?
I'm looking forward to some new projects and stuff that I've had on the horizon, having the ability to be able to launch some of those. It's some things that I have had on, the back burner for a while, but I'm ready now to bring them forward. And I think as business owners, oftentimes we can have a lot of ideas and things, but it's execution, having the ability to be able to execute because they can sit on the shelf somewhere, collect the dust, those thoughts and those projects. But, they don't help us until we can bring them to fruition. And so I have some things in the works that I'm looking forward to doing in the new year.
Exciting. And if you were able to give yourself some advice back when you first started this out, I'm guessing the way you thought this was going to turn out, like you already mentioned, the name had to change because the scope had to change. Is there any sort of lessons you've learned in that you're now evolving yourself of maybe the way you define success? And how is that different from when you first started out?
Yes, I would say be open to change because things evolve. You can start out with one idea and it may evolve into something else. The other thing I would say is don't beat yourself up if it's the process and journey looks different. And I say that because sometimes I'll think to myself, what if I had started this agency 20 years ago? Where would it be? But then I have to remind myself that things happen the way that they did for a reason. If I had not taken the journey that I've taken, I wouldn't have the knowledge that I have because there's a lot of people that have started agencies, but they don't have the 20 plus years of experience that I have of having worked in this industry. So I have a wealth of knowledge and that's what's helping me now as I'm developing the agency.
That makes me want to take one of your own business principles and apply it to you and ask you this question, because I know you talk about how leadership behavior changes when support becomes proactive. How have you seen that work for you personally, and how has your leadership leveled up?
Yes. And so again, I think I mentioned before that I have to take my own advice, and practice what I preach. And what was the old saying? I think it's the cobbler's kids don't have shoes or whatever like that.
Right.
So I had to take my own advice and of course, make sure that I have the support that I need to be able to move my business forward as well. And so for me, from a leadership standpoint, I knew that was the best thing that I needed to do for my own company to be able to do that. and learn how to lead. I think when I first started and developed the agency, that was something that I had to learn, the difference between leadership and management. And there is a difference. And I, had never been in that position before. And I had people giving me different advice of how to lead. And it backfired and I realized then that I had to learn and find my own way of leadership and what that looked like for me. And once that happened, it was game changing. So yeah, definitely being able to learn your own style. And I know we talked a little bit too, I talked to clients about and our team about proactiveness. Because I always say that people don't want something else to manage. So with us and our team, we're trying to work with our clients in a proactive manner versus reactive so that they have the support that they need, that they're not pulling support, that support is helping them become better leaders.
That's a good note to end on, of find your own leadership style there. Don't try to copy somebody else's. Tonya, if people want to find out more about you, see where you're speaking, what you're up to, or learn more about Team Delegate, where can they go?
LinkedIn, our website. I'm heavy on LinkedIn. I do share a lot of content on there that I'm hoping that people find useful as well. So that's where you can find me.
Excellent. Thanks so much for being here, Tonya.
Thank you for having me, Elizabeth.
Thanks for joining another Cake on Tuesday celebration of beautiful disruption. Please share it, review it, and find more innovative stories at podcast.cakeontuesday.com. I'm Elizabeth Bieniek. Be bold, stay curious. Now go have some cake.